Well, hello and welcome to the Healing Waters Chit Chat broadcast. So, as you know, I am your host, Marie Kennedy Groves, and we have started back our series of Chit Chats. And it has started out with straight fire. As last time, you got to hear a chit chat with Dr. Ina Lozinskaya. Did I butcher it too bad?
No, not too bad. Lozinskaya.
I'm getting better. So, because of my challenge with her last name, we have been calling her Dr. Ina. And if you did not catch last week's episode, you have got to go back and hear how she has transitioned from standard medical practice over to a lot of holistic sources, that she is literally rocking women's health in this arena. And I am going to read for you again today her bio, just in case you did not get last week's episode. You'll get a little glimpse of who she is. And then we literally are doing a part 2 because we had so much that we wanted to talk about that we did not get to, that we said, you know what, let's jump back in and do a part 2. So that is what we are doing. But here is a little bit on Dr. Ina. She's an MD, she's a physician, international speaker, author, mentor, wife, and so much more. She is a founder and CEO of Midlife Wellness Institute, where she helps her clients restore their health and vitality by addressing the root cause of your symptoms and optimizing hormones and metabolism. Dr. Ina was inspired when she experienced a life-changing transformation after years of suffering with hormonal imbalances, low energy, and poor sleep that prevented her from living the life of her dreams. She is on mission to prove that optimized hormones and balanced metabolism will help you feel well and live the life you want, regardless of age. Dr. Ina's signature 4-step wellness method combines advanced diagnostic testing with a natural approach to healing, helping hundreds of her clients feel years younger and love the way they look and feel. Her easy-to-follow individual wellness programs help clients restore their energy, weight, mood, sleep, memory, and performance. Dr. Ina speaks locally, nationally, and internationally about combining the best of traditional and holistic approach to create the optimal well-being, offering her insight to medical colleagues, professionals, and entrepreneurs. She is also mentoring medical students, helping her future colleagues practice medicine in a better way. Dr. Ina, welcome, welcome, welcome. You have no idea, well, I think you do have an idea of how much I love all of that, because you are just speaking my language on so many levels. As I talk to women all over the world, and we touched on this last episode, but I talk to women all over the world, and like you and I talked about, we all struggle with the same things, yet we feel alone. Like we're the only ones that struggle with this, and we're scared to ask questions because for some reason we feel less than, because we struggle with this. And when you start being transparent and start talking about this, it's like all these women run to the forefront and say, hello, that's me.
Yes.
And I just love that you are addressing this from a root cause instead of just trying to cover up the symptom of it. So thank you for coming back on and allowing me to ask you more questions because I'll be honest with you, I was not finished.
Thank you for having me, Marie. It's such a pleasure to share the message, and it's so important that what you're doing for women.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. It's very near and dear to my heart because I was one of those women that thought I was alone in many areas. And when I started speaking my truth and being transparent, I could not believe the number of women that came along that I thought had it all together that said, Marie, I struggle with the same things. I was like, what? So I'm going to start out with this question. What are the main hormones affecting midlife and what is their role in the body?
Well, there are multiple hormones that we have. They're all connected, they're all related, they all work together. But there are 6 key hormones that will affect the way we look, feel, and perform in our midlife and beyond. Number 1 is cortisol. It's your survival hormone. It's made in adrenals and it's responsible for literally for survival. It determines our response to stress. And if we are constantly living in a chronic stress environment, cortisol will have to work much harder to help us survive. Second one is thyroid. And it's not really one hormone, it's several hormones. It's a cascade. But bottom line is, yeah, that group of thyroid hormones is your metabolic furnace. It determines how fast or slow your metabolism is. It works very closely with cortisol. If one doesn't work well, then another cannot function well. But thyroid will determine how your body looks, how much fat you store, how you feel emotionally, and it determines so many other things, and we'll go over those. Third one is insulin. And insulin's job is to make sure that our blood sugar doesn't run high because that becomes toxic for nervous system and for other tissues. And again, very closely related to cortisol. When we're in stress, our body doesn't respond well to our insulin, and it has to go up. And the more insulin we have around, the more it becomes pro-inflammatory, and it contributes to belly fat and so many other things, and to future prediabetes and diabetes. Then, of course, sex hormones. Your estrogen is your go-getter, it's your motivation, it's your skin, it's your hair, it's your strong bonds, it's your strong heart, it's your sharp brain. You know how after menopause, women will say, I just have this word on the tip of my tongue. I just cannot, like, struggle finding words. Little memory gets worse with age. That's your estrogen. So brain needs it badly. Progesterone is a counterpart of estrogen. They work together, and progesterone is our Hakuna Matata drug in a way. It's basic, or hormone rather. It's nature anti-anxiety. It helps you sleep. It also works on your bones. It's also important for your brain. And then testosterone, even though men have a lot more of it, so it's always thought of a male hormone, but women have it too. And in fact, while of course men will have way more testosterone than women do, but inside the woman's body, if you compare levels of estrogen and testosterone, we actually have way more testosterone than estrogen. It's super important for one's health. Bones need it, brain needs it. Your testosterone is your go-getter. Estrogen is more, I want it done. And testosterone is, and I'm getting it done. So when estrogen goes downhill, women say often, I just don't feel like doing anything anymore. When estrogen is still on board, but testosterone is way down, women will say, I wake up in the morning and there are so many things I would want to do, and then I just somehow never get it done. So that's your testosterone. But so those are the 6 key hormones that will determine your well-being and well-looking and well-performing status. And all of those hormones will change in midlife, starting somewhere around between 35 and 40. Those changes begin and they go all the way through menopause and, of course, beyond. And those are the hormones, key hormones affecting our life.
That is so interesting. Okay, so I just have this question. So women that tend to be more type A, getting the job done, you know, da 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 da. Do you feel like they have a higher level of testosterone than maybe others? Is why they can be more type A and getting the job done?
Well, we test, you know, because medicine is half art, but it's half science.
Yeah.
So always test. And I have a lot of busy professionals and executives in my practice as clients. And so I test them. So I have to say, from my experience, those go-getters usually have very high level of cortisol. And they are high achievers at the cost of running much higher stress level in their body and tolerating it for a while. But like anything in life, there is always a price for it. So when they come to see me, they are actually much younger than many of my clients, and they struggle more and they crash harder, because when your body constantly runs at much higher cortisol, it's toxic, it's inflammatory. And so while you have a few years, maybe a decade or two of being a high achiever, but the drawback is by the time your cortisol finally just crashes and cannot do it anymore, these people come in, they age much faster, their sex hormones go downhill much faster. I mean, I see them in early 40s, and physiologically, sometimes they're pretty much like in 50s. And it's reversible, it's restorable. So it's actually, I'm glad you asked this question. It's important though to reverse it and to stop at some point and realize what you're doing to yourself, because when your cortisol is finally depleted and it's super low, that's when you're at much higher risk for autoimmune disease, for cancers. Your immune system cannot function well because it's a high stress environment. So that high achieving comes at the cost. There is nothing wrong with being a high achiever, but it's important to remember that if you're living at that level, at that pace, you really have to up level your self-care practices so you don't get burnout. And I think high achievers often forget about that until they finally cannot keep going.
Yes.
And their performance is down, and that's when they finally seek help, or they just become sick and forced to look for help. So
that is very, very interesting. Very interesting. So what happens in menopause? Can you explain that? Because I think menopause is such a scary thing.
Yeah.
That
Life just begins at menopause, Marie.
yeah, that's exactly right. So yeah, so can you explain what happens in menopause? Because I think we've talked about menopause. We talked about this in the last episode about how for such a long time I dreaded menopause because you hear all the negative, but I just don't believe it has to be that way. So talk about that a little bit, about what happens and how we can make it where it is not something to be dreaded, but to look forward to.
Sure. So menopause is very natural process. As we end our years of potentially having children, nature changes our hormones so we cannot conceive anymore. And so what happens in menopause is your ovaries that used to make your estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone just retires, they're done. So they stop making those sex hormones. Now, we never go to zero. So your adrenals that make your cortisol, which is survival hormone, stress hormone, now have a second job. And they have to make a little bit of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, because again, your whole body needs it, it's not just for the uterus and not just for having babies. So your ovaries start making a little bit of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, in addition to their main job, making cortisol, so you are actually waking up in the morning and able to function. If you have a good lifestyle habits and right nutrition, and your body is able to cleanse appropriately, you are at a less stress, so body will make a little bit more of those sex hormones. When somebody is living high stress life, or there is inflammation inside for multiple reasons, body is busy, survival is more important than anything else, so body will make more cortisol and even less sex hormones. So that's the difference, where some women go through menopause and they say, it wasn't bad. I mean, everybody notices energy down. Everybody notices my memory is not what it used to be at 25. Bones get weaker. I mean, there are a lot of things that still happen. But if there is good stress management, right nutrition, and everything is in balance, women will have less symptoms because they still have a little bit more of estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone that is naturally made. If there is high stress living or a lot of inflammation, then body is busy making cortisol, and it makes even less sex hormones. And those are the women who will really feel menopause with hot flushes and forgetfulness and quick development of weak bones, osteoporosis, and heart disease, and so many other things.
Wow.
And then as your cortisol naturally has to go up with menopause, because with losing sex hormones, it just becomes a little bit harder to function for the whole body, not just your uterus. As your cortisol naturally goes up to help you dealing with that stress, it will bring up insulin with you. So women naturally tend to have a little bit more insulin resistance. And many of them are now at risk for prediabetes and eventually diabetes. And brain suffers. So there is a little bit more, the risk of Alzheimer's disease and general dementia goes up once woman goes through menopause. So that's insulin. And thyroid is very closely related to cortisol. So again, when your adrenals start working harder to make a little bit more cortisol to help you deal with stressors, thyroid will struggle too. And that's why it's so natural when women go through menopause, everybody will get a little bit, at least a little bit of belly fat. That's your cortisol. All women will lose their waistline. We just get kind of thicker, wider, and that's losing estrogen. Everyone will notice that we just get bigger. There is a little bit more of us once we go through menopause, and that's your thyroid. And that's your thyroid. And for some women, it's a balance on a new level. So you notice all those things, but overall, they sort of stay in balance. It's a new balance, but it's a relative balance. And for some women, it really, it's a sort of losing sex hormones was the last layer of protection, and now things just go haywire. So that's really what happens with hormones in menopause. And as hormones change, so is the rest of the body, because hormones govern everything that happens in your body. Your estrogen has 300 functions in your body. It's not about having babies. It's not about just protecting your uterus. Brain has ton of the most receptors for your sex hormones, estrogen and testosterone, are actually in your brain, not in your uterus. Your bones have receptors for sex hormones. So everything gets affected. And as you sort of go through that switch of hormones, body feels it. And so that's basically essence of aging. As we go through that stage, hormones change. It's a little bit harder to function. And we start accumulating that inflammation, which is basically inflammaging is essence of aging. And there are ways to stop the clock and reverse it or slow it down, but you don't need those hormones.
Right. Oh my gosh. So you have me completely intrigued right now. All right, we're going to take a really short commercial break because I have more questions for you. So we will be right back.
80% of women will develop a pelvic health condition at some point in their lives. There is relief. There is hope. The Pelvic Floor Store, your resource for personal health.
And welcome back to this Chick Chat episode with Dr. Ina. This is straight fire. Oh my gosh. We are talking about menopause. We're talking about that subject that many of us go, oh. There's a lot of women that have been through it that go, oh. There's a lot of women that are getting close to it that go, oh. But we are talking about how the body functions in that time and what it actually does. And Dr. Ina has said some key words prior to the commercial break that it can be reversed. And so I want to start back by asking you, all right, we're going through menopause. We have all the feels, all the things that we don't like. Are we stuck here, Dr. Ina?
Well, the great news is that no, we don't have to be. We can't really reverse menopause. We want to honor it, but we want to honor it in a healthy way. We want to take spiritual opinion of that and freedoms that comes with that, but tune up your body so it can function the way it used to function. In other words, you really want to stop the clock, maybe reverse it back a little bit, and just sort of stay there, feeling great. So we use bioidentical hormones to give body back what it lost. And we use bioidentical hormones. It's a very important concept because years ago, when I just started practicing in 1992, I guess I just dated myself, didn't I? So years ago, we had hormones in traditional medicine. We had synthetic hormones. We had one dose for all, and we put all women on it. And then in 2002, we actually learned that, it actually has negative health implications, and it can be problematic for many women. Some felt great with it, but some didn't do well. And so we demonized hormones for a while. But what we learned from science over the last 2 decades is that synthetic hormones that we put in our body and body doesn't know what to do with it cause inflammation. However, when we use bioidentical hormones, which means hormones that structurally are exactly the same your body used to make, body says, thank you, it can function now. Your brain gets better, your bones get better, you're protected from heart disease, your risk of Alzheimer's going down like it used to be before menopause. You have more energy, your skin doesn't age that much. So basically, we give body back sex hormones. Of course, we're not going to go for super high doses we used to have when we were 20s. That's not necessary. We don't get our period back. We really don't miss it. Most of us anyway.
No, we don't.
And it's not about trying to having a baby anymore. Remember, menopause is about woman now lives for herself. She brings her beauty of her spirit into the world. That's her biggest gift, not the kids anymore. Kids were there and they're grown up and now they have life of their own. So we give body back the hormones it lost, so it doesn't have to struggle so much trying to compensate for losses. Bioidentical hormones, again, we test, we follow each woman very closely. We do it for men too, because they lose their testosterone. But women are disadvantaged when we lose all 3 hormones. That's just a lot more stress for the body. And so we monitor them, we test them beforehand, we test them in the process, we adjust hormones very slowly. We get them back to the levels where those levels are protective for the body, protecting your brain, protecting your heart, your bones. And women feel good again, energy is back, sleep is good. So many things are back. And she can function well. And many of them come back. First of all, my favorite is 1 month appointment when they come back and they say, thank you for giving me my life back.
Oh, wow.
second, it's just such a transformation because finally she worked so hard her midlife,
Mhm.
hoping that at some point she has time for herself. And now that she has time, all of a sudden she doesn't feel well, doesn't feel like even like it's not a living, it's surviving. And having hormones back changes so much. I remember I went without hormones for a while. Obviously, I'm postmenopausal. And having them back and waking up one day and say, wow, I am back. Like that's the woman I know, that's the woman I've always wanted to be. It's important, but even more important is, there are a lot of BHRT, which is bioidentical hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah.
For women all over the country, and it's very common in Europe as well. So it's been around since 70s, really. More so in the last 2 decades. But it's very important to remember that her hormones have to come into a healthy body. And so if you're just playing with sex hormones, you may or may not feel the best. You will always feel better. You will not necessarily feel the best. In order to feel the best, everything else has to be there. When we work with women in menopause or perimenopause, we optimize their nutrition because each decade has different demands on your body. We optimize their nutrition. We make sure you eat what your body needs. We make sure you're not eating what inflames your body. We make sure that your body cleanses well because that's where hormones are safe, when your body can use them well and eliminate them. And that's determined by your genetics, by the way you eat, and by the way your body cleanses. And it depends on your lifestyle habits. Because again, if you don't balance your stress well and your cortisol is sky high, I don't care how much estrogen you put in your body, you're not gonna feel well. And so hormones, giving somebody bioidentical hormones is life-changing, life-transforming. And again, you stop aging or you slow it down, because nowadays we live long enough that you have another extra 40 years in your menopause. It's how would you sacrifice 40 years of life for just mediocrity pushing through the day? Why would you want to do that?
Right.
So
So
everything is
let me ask you a question around what you just said. So I have a lot of women that will tell me, and yes, it can be around menopause, but not always. It can be, before menopause, but they'll tell me, Marie, I literally have zero sex drive. I could care less if I ever have sex again the rest of my life. And obviously, with being married and having a husband, that can be a real issue.
absolutely.
So with what you're talking about, that can greatly increase the sex drive as well by what you're talking about. Am I right on that?
You're absolutely right on that. And it's a super important question because women come in and, women are always about giving to the world. So they will say, I have no energy, it's hard to work, it's hard to perform. So they will not say anything about her personal stuff necessarily right away. And then as we talk about hormones and we get to testosterone, and I say testosterone has everything to do with everything sex related and libido related. It's your vaginal lubrication, it's your ability to have orgasm, it's your desire to have sex, it's your ability to feel pleasure, it's your desire. Often when testosterone is low, not only she's not interested in sex and it hurts, some of them will also open up and say, if he touches me again, like I really, like I could kill him if he touches me again. So in some women, and it's often happens with women way before menopause, when the life is extremely stressful, or they're perimenopausal and testosterone goes downhill, they will say, my child touches me and it's unpleasant feeling. Like I love my kid, but I just cannot stand being touched anymore. And we put them on testosterone and their next appointment is in a month, but in 2 weeks, she will email us and say, guess what I want again. And it's wonderful to hear, and we always laugh about it. So women don't talk about it because they don't feel comfortable, but it's such an important part of quality of life and quality of relationship. And that's why I think partly how many divorces we have in that 40s, 50s, because it's part of life. Guys lose testosterone, but they don't lose it as quickly, and they have a ton of it to start with. So they will feel the difference in their 70s, maybe 60s. And woman has a little bit, so she loses it much earlier and easier. And so guys feel that she's not, they take it personal.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to explain that it hurts and I don't feel like it and it's unpleasant. And it's extremely important part of life, and spiritually and relationship wise, not just, and physically. I mean, it's important to be experiencing pleasure. It's and so testosterone, giving back testosterone makes a huge difference for them. And we had clients where I actually got flowers from the husband saying thank you for giving me my wife back.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and that's, we say that, these chick chats are, for women, but I'm telling you, I mean, I know a couple who she started having struggles in that area. And, now they had a phenomenal relationship and they have great communication, but he just basically said, listen, this is not going to work for me. And we've got to figure this out. And she was very open to figuring it out. And they did a lot of different things to try to figure that piece out and finally did. But she said it was a real thing that they had to discuss and go through. But oh my gosh, I can't believe that our time is almost gone again. I could talk to you literally, I think, for days. Because you are a wealth of information. And like I told you, I a lot of times will ask the hard questions because it's questions that are burning on so many women's minds, but they don't want to talk about it because they feel like there's something wrong with them if they admit to this. And so I'm just going to say to all of you listening out there, whether, obviously if you are a woman, absolutely. But even if you are a man and you're catching this episode of Chick Chat and you're like, oh my gosh, I wish my wife could hear this. Maybe you want to reach out to Dr. Ina and find out what's the best way. How do I approach my wife with this? So that she can be open to finding out how to, get better in this area and reverse this. There is hope. And I hope that today we have spread hope to you that if you're experiencing any of these side effects, I like to say, of menopause or your body changing, don't just settle. Don't just say, well, I guess this is just the way I am now. No. There is hope to feel amazing. Never settle for just surviving. Fight until you figure out how to thrive. So, Dr. Ina, share with our listening audience, how do they reach you? And then also share your free offer that we are going to link to this episode.
Thank you, Marie. So you can find us. Our website is www.midlifewellnessinstitute.com. And you'll find quite a bit of information there. Our phone number is 720-636-3040. We're located physically in Denver, Colorado, but we are national and we're able to help women and men nationwide. I did put together a optimal hormone solutions guide just because so many women ask, the same questions. It's just important to understand what is happening with you, why it's happening, and how you can help yourself. So I'm happy to share that guide. You can click on the link on our website, or you can email us or call us, I guess, and ask for the guide. And Marie, I'm going to share the link with you so you can share it with your listeners.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to share with our listening audience that there is hope. So until next time, I know this is not going to be the last time we talk. I know we're going to stay connected, and you are going to be one of our resources at WYTV7. Thank you so much. If you have not subscribed to the Healing Waters Chick Chat episodes, click the subscribe button below, get in touch with Dr. Ina, and live your best life.